In emergency management, the definition of a stakeholder is any person or entity with a vested interest in the survival or recovery of a given community.
This is the Stakeholder Prepping podcast, where the tactical comes from the practical, and today, you become your own stakeholder.
Here are your hosts, Chris and AC.
Welcome back to Stakeholder Prepping, where you, yes, you are the stakeholder in your own survival. And real quick, thank you to everyone who has checked out our TACNAV card. There is actually a web page dedicated to it now, since it's kind of hard to explain exactly what it does and all the cool features it has on a podcast without having it in front of you or having a video. We have a dedicated web page accessible through our website, stakeholderprepping.com/TACNAV. And it actually has a really, really cool full demo video by Eric at Real World Readiness that he did for us. That's also available on YouTube, but he goes into some serious detail on it and explains everything on that card. And we cannot thank Eric enough. That is a great tutorial video.
He did a great job. He did better than we could. And he had to go out into the bush to do it because he demonstrated like the, bullet drop calculator and the rangefinder. So he actually did that in real life. And then he went and ranged something. And then he went and shot it with a 5.56 and then actually calculated the range using the card. So it was very cool. He did a great job. He did every single feature that it has, and yeah, I couldn't thank Eric enough. So yeah, if you guys are on the YouTube, go check out Real World Readiness. He has some great demo videos. He does all kinds of stuff. He did a great one for Bodes as well.
Yeah, and you could tell he actually liked the meal that he chose. I think he ate the tater tot hot dish, didn't he?
He ate it with a stick. Of course, he liked it. he was spoonless. It was a spoonless food video.
Yeah, he decided to go a little bit rougher than normal, and he forgot his spoon. He whittled a little spoon out of a stick and ate Vode's preparedness meal with a stick whittled into a spoon. So
yeah,
if you're willing to do that, it's got to taste good.
It's got to be good. But he did a great job on our TACNAV card, and that's the featured video on that page. But yeah, if you go to stakeholderprepping.com, up in the top left, there's a drop down with. We've added some cool features to the website, and there's more cool stuff coming. But if you just go to stakeholderprepping.com/TACNAV, you'll get to that page. It's got all the features, and I think there's 3 videos on there, 2 that we did, and then his is the featured video. It's just really good. He did a great all-around demo of the TACNAV card. I was impressed.
Yeah, for sure. And we cannot forget our fantastic listener reviews. AC, I have studied my Crocodile Dundee videos. I have studied the Hugh Jackman videos. I'm going to try to knock this one out.
Okay.
But
let me set this up real quick. We had a listener, Glenn, write in, who is from Australia, and it's very interesting that we're finding ourselves with a lot more listeners outside of the United States. And even though we are very U.S. centric, I think he likes our podcast, and so Chris said if he writes us a review, Chris will read it in his best Australian accent. And Glenn went and unfortunately left us a really good review. So Chris is going to try to do it.
So if I butcher this, it's Glenn's fault.
It's Glenn's fault.
Right? All right, here we go. This is one podcast I cannot recommend enough. Even though I live in Western Australia, you guys are super informative and I dig your dry humor. Don't drop the time on your podcast. I listen to you pair most days for about 6 hours. Keep up the great work. FYI, we call shrimps prawns in Oz.
That was phenomenal. You know what, though? I think there is a regionally specific Australian dialect because I have a very good friend from Adelaide, and his Australia has 7 more syllables. It's like Australia. It's a longer Australia.
I went with the best Western Australia that I could.
That's good.
So
I like that. And so I did send Glenn a little care package, send him some stickers. And then I will say that there was one item that is very common in the US that happens to be maybe illegal in Australia, and it may have found its way into that package. Like, I just didn't know because it was a very, very common item that, like, most people have, like, maybe on their keyring.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, Glenn, let me know if Australian Customs and Border Patrol scoops you up or if you get the package. We'll see.
So, moving on to today's episode, what do we got, AC?
Okay, today's episode is going to be pretty fun. This is the $500 prepper. And a lot of people have asked us just where to start. Hey, where do I start prepping? Because prepping is so overwhelming, and there are a lot more people getting into it from the ground floor. So we're going to break down all of sort of the majorly important facets of prepping, and we're going to get you everything you need to start from scratch for $500. And I actually have a friend in mind right now when we're talking about this. Um, I know everyone thinks that people are naturally prepared, but I'm telling you, not everybody is. I have a friend, a buddy. His name is Buddy. So my buddy, and this is a grown adult United States citizen homeowner, and he's a backpacker. Him and I go backpacking together, but the guy, he doesn't own a firearm. I'll tell you, I bought him his first non-kitchen knife for his 46th birthday. Outside of his kitchen, he did not own a knife. Not a pocket knife, not a fixed blade, not a hunting knife or a bushcraft knife. I bought him his first knife. Like, he's just not a prepper, and he's not a weirdo. He's just a normal person who just isn't into it. And I think a lot of us think that everybody is just naturally kind of prepared. Everybody kind of has an EDC loadout, and everybody kind of has a little sip kit at home. But I'm telling you, there are many functioning adults in the United States that don't have any of that stuff. So don't be like Buddy. Uh, be the $500 prepper. Let's start from scratch. We'll start from square one here.
I completely agree. And it is really cool that you buying that knife brings him one step closer into a community. So now he's one step closer to preparedness.
One
That's what
step
it's all
closer.
about.
It was actually, it was a knife. It was a Fudo forge. It was a nice knife, and for him, it's like, oh yes, okay, so I have a knife now. I mean, like, if I did buy you a Fudo forge knife actually, and you're
Yes,
like,
I
yes,
use it to cook with all the time.
this is like functional artwork. But for somebody that's not a knife person, like, oh yeah, it's just like a butter knife to me. So, he's like whittling with it or something, or doing something silly. But anyway, yeah, let's talk. And by the way, I do want to say that maybe this just isn't for the beginner, right? I think this is for everybody. Everybody's going to get something out of this, even if you are the hardcore crazy prepper.
Yes. And this is not just for, the people that are starting out super, super basic. It's not for the expert. We're obviously going to make some assumptions here. We're not going to assume that you're just naked and afraiding your way through life. We're not going
Right,
to assume that
right.
you're homeless, right? We are going to assume that you own the proper clothes for the elements in your area. You have snow boots if you live in Michigan. They might not be the best quality, but they're not going to, you know, you're not walking around in flip flops in the snow. Well, if you're in Michigan, you probably do that anyways. Because I know some people that live in Michigan that midwinter, foot of snow on the ground, and they're out barbecuing. But the assumption here is that you're just a normal, everyday someone who has recently discovered the national debt clock or the doomsday clock, or maybe you just got done watching Book of Eli for the first time, or Greenland, or any one of these Hollywood movies that sends things over the top, right?
Right. And like I said, this isn't just about the beginner. We're going to talk about the basics, and maybe there's something that you missed. Maybe there's a piece of gear that you didn't know existed, and now you need it. And on the gear side, we're probably going to make a few assumptions there as well. Like, you probably own a tent and or a sleeping bag, or let's say, an extra blanket. You probably own a flashlight. So we're making those kinds of assumptions, but we're talking about the bare minimum you need to be a prepper, and we'll address all of our usual topics that we talk about, right? The food, water, shelter, protection or weapons, warmth, hygiene, sanitation, and physical and mental fitness. And then I'll probably throw in first aid there as well. But we're talking about those things, the holistic look to preparedness. It's all of those facets we usually talk about, and we're going to take $500 and we're going to go spend it, and we're going to make sure you have the bare minimum in those categories.
Money, money, money,
Money,
money.
money. All right. So let's do
So,
this. Chris, you want to start?
yep, let's start with what you're actually prepping for. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to set you up to prep for almost anything covered by the FEMA minimum standards. I know FEMA, government agency, evil, do what you will with that, but we get a lot of data from FEMA. We can't go around and collect all of that data ourselves, so they are a good resource. 72 hours without dying, FEMA recommends. If you can make it through that first 72 hours, help is probably on the way or already there, right? So let's start with FEMA's emergency preparedness guidelines, primarily found on ready.gov. And this is actually a good government website. I will say that. Ready.gov is well executed. For a government website, it is probably one of the better organized ones. It's easy to use, it's easy to navigate, and it has really good, solid information on there. But ready.gov emphasizes a three-pronged approach. Hey, rule of threes, what do you know?
Rule of threes.
Be informed, so sign up for alerts. This is free. Make a plan, communication, evacuation, sheltering plans. This is also free. And build a kit, supplies for at least 72 hours. Key essentials include water, 1 gallon a day per person. That's so if you have 3 people in your house, that is 3 gallons per day. So that's 9 gallons that you need to keep stored. Non-perishable food, flashlights, radios, emergency documentation. That emergency documentation can be on a thumb drive. It can be copies of your driver's license and your insurance policy and your deed to your house or the title to the car, all sorts of stuff. So, AC, do you want to just go back and forth on the shopping list for preppers starting from scratch and see how close we can get to 500 without going over?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll go first on this, and I'll start with the last thing on our list because it's also free. Well, monetarily speaking, the physical and mental fitness. There are a ton of free videos online to help you get into better shape, and everyone's different. So I'm not going to recommend any like workout videos or anything like that. I'm not going to, say, "Oh, everybody should do jazzercise or something." But I will recommend a video that explains like the physical education side of things. I really like this one. There's a YouTube channel called PE Specialist, like physical education specialist, PE specialist, and I really like his approach. So I'll post the link to that gives you kind of the idea, but it's really like, why do you need to focus on cardio? What does cardio actually do? And those kinds of things. So I really like the approach to that one. It's not like specific workouts. It's more like a holistic look at physical fitness and why certain aspects are more important than others. So that's a great channel. I love that resource. And he talks about the difference between physical strength versus endurance. And I really like that section on this video. It's very cool. So I think that one might be, maybe it's 10 or 15 minutes, but I'm going to post one of his videos that I really like. He
But
just talked.
does he talk about what to do if your finger gets stuck in the scooter wheels?
No, that's more of the mental fitness thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go over that too. Yeah, that's more of an avoid thing. Um, and then there's also a really good video on Prepper Fitness. It's like the Prepper Fitness 101, and it's by City Prepper. And I do follow City Prepper on YouTube. There's some good stuff. There's some questionable stuff there, but the one video they do on Prepper Fitness 101, I just really like because it's just a normal fitness video, but they relate it to prepping really well. So I'm going to post that. So those are two videos. That's your physical fitness, ticks the box. And by the way, they are free. So we still are at $500 here. That's physical fitness. Now, let's talk about mental fitness a little bit. Um, there's a really awesome prepping podcast by a couple of guys who don't take themselves too seriously. And I think maybe you should subscribe and download a bunch of those episodes. And then in a total collapse, you'll be able to listen to us. And there's your mental fitness.
Yay!
And I'm going to throw in a deck of cards. So $5.
Yeah. Deck of cards, there's a lot you can do with it.
There's a lot, and if you think about it, it's for, you can do it by yourself. There's solitaire, the original OG by yourself, no friend game, and then you can do that with multiple people. You can play some games with the kids, and all you really need is light to play it after dark. But yeah, so I'm gonna start. The first money we're spending here is $5 on a deck of cards, just for your sanity if all of your devices go dead.
Yeah. 100% agree with that because
So
you're going to need something to keep you busy and keep your mind active.
100%. You got to keep the mind active. So that's your physical and mental fitness, and I'm going to spend $5 on a deck of cards. But that's where we're going to start. And then, Chris, what's the next one? Where are you going?
I'm going to start with some of the bigger ticket items. So let's go to protection weapons, right?
Yep, that's solid. You need it.
And this one is going to go for more the basic beginners.
Yep.
Um, so let's say you need a gun. You need something to protect you and yours with. I'm going to go over the least expensive, reasonable gun purchases and give you some pros and cons, right? And the way I see it, you really have about 4 different realistic options. A pump shotgun that you can find for around 140-ish is a new Turkish-built gun. Maybe a used, slightly better shotgun in 12 gauge. I think it's called the Elite, but
Hmm.
it's a Turkish built. It's a copy of the Mossberg
Yeah.
500.
There's a billion of those out there. They're all about the same price. You can find a lot of those Turkish built, G-Force or something, just a good, solid pump action shotgun, right?
Right. And around $140, you're not absolutely breaking the bank. Um, they're not quite as reliable as the actual name brand like Maverick 88, Mossberg 500, Remington 870, Remington 800. Um, they may have some trouble with certain types of rounds. So different loads, I believe they may only take high brass rounds instead of low brass just to get it to eject steadily. But either way, it does make cool sounds. It makes that every time you
Yeah,
rack it.
such a great noise.
Um, but you could also get less than lethal rounds for it. Downside, it doesn't take chamber inserts very well. It's not super great at that. You've got to actually play with it quite a bit to get chamber inserts in there.
So you're just limited to the particular rounds it likes to eat. You find what it likes to shoot, and that's what you're going to get with that shotgun. You're not going up and down. It's just that.
Pretty much. So if
Yep.
it only likes high brass Fiocchi ammo,
That's what you're shooting.
then you're pretty much stuck with high brass Fiocchi ammo, which may become difficult to find.
Sure.
Um, another option is a Heritage brand 22 long rifle, or it's a Heritage revolver. It's a 22 revolver. They're around $100 new. It's a 6-shot single action. Palmetto State Armory makes them. They're the Heritage Rough Rider is what they're called. But they're pretty good guns. They're actually really fun to shoot. They're great for training. Downsides, they don't shoot very fast. They are
Sure.
single action. So you have to cock the hammer every time. They don't have a ton of knockdown power. So if you're in a gunfight with somebody who wants to take your stuff, shot placement is critical. Um, there's a lot that goes into that, but they do the job that they're expected to do. But for $100, if that's going to be your go-to, it's a great pistol to start with. Great trainer. You could also go with the Nomad, the ATI Nomad 12 gauge. It's a 12 gauge shotgun for $80, and it's a break open shotgun.
So just a single shot shotgun.
Yep, single shot.
Yep.
It'll take the chamber inserts in whatever you decide to go with, whether it's 45, 9mm, 357, you name it. And it'll take just about anything that you can put in front of it. It is a single shot, so it is slower, but it does have a lot of utility. And it's if you throw 12 gauge ammo in there, it'll eat just about anything because there's
Right.
nothing to cycle.
It'll shoot pretty much any 12 gauge ammo.
Right. And if you're looking for like a semi-auto 22 carbine, I found one for $140. It's called the Citadel Tracker. Again, Palmetto State Armory has them. $140 brand new. It's a 10 round capacity, I believe. And it's just a basic plinker. So again, reliability, not going to be quite as up there with the name brands that have been around for 100 plus years.
This is like a knockoff 1022, right?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
However, I will say these are all brand new prices. So if you are looking for a weapon and you are willing to put in a little bit of research, or a lot of bit of research, depending on how much time you've got and what your budget is, you can find some pretty good deals at gun shops around town. For example, I have a name brand Mossberg 500. It has custom stippling all down the stock. It has custom stippling on the pump. It has a heat shield. It has a breaching muzzle device. It's got all sorts of stuff on it. And I got it for $110. And that's the actual price I paid for it was $110, not the price I told my wife I paid.
Sure. So let's say this is, you're talking about, we're probably talking to somebody who doesn't own a gun, right? This is your first gun ever. So you're right. There are some used options. I probably wouldn't go looking for, a less expensive used automatic pistol just because of all the issues you could be getting into, right? I like the used shotgun. Great idea. Sure. They're always going to work, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I would suggest, I was looking earlier today. I found used Ruger 1022 rifles in good condition. They were a little bit worn on the bolt, a little bit worn on the barrel, $110, $115 on Gunbroker.
That's pretty good. So is that what you would go without if you had, let's say I gave you somewhere between $130, $150 to spend on a rifle and ammo, by the way, would you go with the used 1022? Would that be your go-to?
I would probably go with a used 1022 and then get ammo to feed it because
for 3.6 cents a round or whatever.
Yeah, as soon as you buy a gun and the first round that you put through it, hey, congratulations, it's used.
It's a used gun now. Yeah, you take it out of the box, it's used.
The reason I got that shotgun for so cheap is because the previous owner had cut the stock 2.5 inches short because he had super short arms. So he needed a short stock. So it was sitting on the shelf, and every time somebody picked it up and they'd shoulder it, it didn't feel right. It sat there for 3 months and that just kept getting marked down on price. And I was like, oh, I know what's wrong with it, so I'm going to take it. And then $30 later, I decided to go the Rage Against the Machine route and pistol grip pump on my lap at all times.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
So,
Okay. So that's interesting. Yeah, that's where you would go. I'd probably go. I actually did buy a $100 gun not too long ago. I mean, recently enough, but it was a break open shotgun, but it was a Rossi, and they sold them where you could basically buy the 12 gauge break open, and then you could buy the barrels after the fact, and they aren't firearms, right? So I bought a 22 250 barrel after the fact, and it just goes onto that same, lower or whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
business end. So it was kind of upgradable. So that's where I went with that. Like I think break open shotgun's a pretty awesome, first gun. But you're right, you're not reloading it fast. So you basically get one shot on target, and then you got to retreat and reload probably versus like the 1022 or something.
Exactly. And if you're building this for a bug out bag, you also have to consider weight of the ammo because 12 gauge shells are significantly bulkier and heavier than 22 ammo.
Oh, that's a really good call. Yeah, that's a great call. I was thinking this was probably a sip kit gun, but you're right. This could be you could be mobile. Okay, so I'm gonna add on to that with your protection weapons thing. You need a knife. If you don't, say it in your Australian. Do the crocodile Dundee.
It's not a knife.
That's not a knife. This is a
This is a
knife.
knife.
Yeah. So you need a knife. You just do. If you don't own one, you need a fixed blade, full tang, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none knife. Something that you can baton if needed, uh, and just an all around utility, minor bushcraft, self defense type backup weapon. I'm gonna give us a budget of say $30 for this, although we could get into like a $10 Mora. It depends on what kind of budget Chris leaves us with. But let's just assume that between the gun, ammo, and knife, maybe we're at $165 or something like that, and the deck of
I'd say
cards.
that's pretty fair when you include
Yeah.
transfer fees and things like that.
Yeah. So let's say something like that. So this knife, I would say it's either gonna be like that $10 Mora, go get a Mora knife, they're awesome for $10, you can't go wrong. Joe Flowers is like, it's the best, best $10 he ever spent. It's a great, great knife. Um, but there are a couple of pretty decent $30 knives in the world. Cold Steel makes a pretty decent $30 knife. You can get into a decent Charade fixed blade knife for $30. You can find either one of those on Amazon, and you can actually get into a Gerber strong arm for $30 on eBay. There's a bunch of them. I don't know if they're slightly used or if they're like knockoffs or something, but that's $100 knife, and you can get into that for $30. That's probably what I would do is I would get a Gerber strong arm. But yeah, like I said, both Cold Steel and Schrade make a good $30 knife option. We'll post links to all of those, including the $10 Mora. But let's say, Chris gave us $30 to spend on a knife. I would recommend a Gerber strong arm with the deck of cards, a little bit of ammo. We're at $165. So
Perfect.
moving on, let's talk about water real quick. FEMA says 1 gallon per day per person. So that's only 3 gallons for one person for 72 hours. It's not a ton. But let's say maybe you've got family here. Maybe you don't want the bare minimum. You can get those. It's that 2.5 gallon purified water jug. You know what I'm talking about? The grocery store where it's like you set it outside and it's got the little pull tap thing.
It looks like a little brick.
Yeah, it looks like a little brick, and you can basically set it on your sink, and then you can use that in your wash basin if you didn't have water. Those are about $4 at. I checked my local Kroger, so you can kind of look at a kind of a national price on those. Those are about $4. So I'm going to give you two of those. So you've got 5 gallons of good stored water. We know stored water will last somewhere between, you know, 6 months to up to 3 years, depending on storage. But I'm gonna give you two of those, and then a Life Straw or equivalent. I've said before that I really like that Membrane Solutions brand with the 30 millimeter water bottle attachment on it. I really like it just because of that water bottle attachment, but it's the same tech as a Life Straw. So we've got $8 for 5 gallons of store bought water and maybe a $12 water filter. That's $20. We're at 185.
Right. So let's recap the list so far. We're talking about food, water, shelter, weapons, warmth, sanitation and hygiene, and fitness. Right?
Yep, that's right.
So I'm going to take on and tackle sanitation and hygiene next. Ideally, in a 72-hour emergency, your toilet still carries waste away. But let's say it doesn't for
Okay.
whatever reason. We've still got a couple of options. There are those really cool toilet seats that attach to a 5-gallon bucket. That's an option.
It's an option.
Um, and they're not terribly expensive, and you can get 5-gallon buckets at like Firehouse Subs. They recycle their buckets, and then the proceeds go to your local firehouse and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a really cool collapsible toilet with bags that I like. It's pretty easy to store, and you just kind of do your business in the bag and tie it off, almost like a larger scale doggy bag that you have on
Oh,
the dog's leash.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I have seen those, and that's nice because if you aren't somebody who already owns a 5-gallon bucket, then this thing just kind of folds up, and then you can deploy it and fold it wherever you need it when you need it, and then it folds away and you don't notice it, right?
Right. It's called the portable camping commode. Um, and it's an outdoor backpacking toilet. So that one's on Amazon. We'll post a link to it. They're 21 bucks. And for another $7, I'm going to add a 40 pack of the pre-moistened disposable washcloths because they can be used in a sanitation bucket or for bathing. If you're doing the quick bathing shower, the alcohol-free wipes go a long
Yeah.
way to cleaning the baby wipes bath.
Yeah, 100%. And, we're talking about 72 hours right now. So if you don't shower in 72 hours, you're not going to die. But you're right. You could find yourself getting dirty or greasy or whatever if you have to go, fix a storm window in the storm or put a tarp up outside or something. You could get sweaty and nasty and dirty. So I understand why you did that. I like the little
Right.
pre-moistened
And
washcloth thing.
they're cheap. I mean, if you
Yep,
get fish guts on your hands or something like that, you can
sure.
wipe it off
Yeah.
and then you're not wasting water to clean up your hands for the most part. And lastly, along those lines, I'm going to add a 14-pound bag of kitty litter for 10 bucks. Now, this has several different purposes. It can be used for odor control, especially in the room that you set up your toilet in, which ideally would be your bathroom.
Your bathroom, right? But it could still stink. It's funny because when you were saying that, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if we have enough money in here for like the cedar chips or something." But you're right, kitty litter does the same thing, but it's got so many other uses.
Right. And spill cleanup, or if you do have something that, tree branch breaches a window and you've got water coming in, that's potentially a slip hazard. So you can throw
100%.
kitty litter on it. There are a ton of reasons you should have a small stash of kitty litter in your sip kit. As a prepper tool, clay-based kitty litter is kind of this invaluable budget-friendly resource for sanitation, spill management, traction. Uh, Key uses of it include acting as an absorbent for emergency bucket toilets, soaking up hazardous oil or fuel spills, providing emergency vehicle traction on ice, drying out wet items, controlling odors in storage areas. If you are without power and you've got wet clothes, packing them in kitty litter will help to dry them so much faster, especially in a cold environment. It's unbelievable. But obviously, like I said a minute ago, emergency sanitation. When plumbing fails, line a 5-gallon bucket with heavy duty garbage bags and use kitty litter to absorb waste and control odor. It sounds kind of gross. Okay, whatever. It's an emergency. This is not going to be your lifelong
Right.
goal to fill
This is
this 5-gallon bucket.
this is 72 hours.
Spill absorption, oil, fuel, chemicals in garages, workshops, anything along those lines, cleanup just becomes safer and easier. You can actually sweep fuel off of your garage floor instead of trying to shop vac it up or whatever. Winter traction. If you sprinkle it under your tires for traction on ice or snow, or place bags in the trunk for extra weight to improve the handling, especially if you're on a rear wheel drive vehicle, that makes a big difference. Buddy of mine had a 2000 Mustang Cobra, and he threw, I think, 5 or 6 bags of kitty litter into his trunk and never had a problem on the snow in the Midwest.
Yeah, just need a little need a little weight back there, sure.
Um, as a dehumidifier or deodorizer, you can put socks or open containers. Um, you can put kitty litter in socks or in open containers to absorb moisture or odors in kind of damp sheds or basements or stored clothing, almost like a mothball, but
Yeah.
not that weird chemically mothball smell.
But if you get into a situation where, yeah, you've broken a window out and your house is getting that, moisty, musty thing, then yeah, that could certainly help you just keep the odor down and keep some of the moisture out of the air for that long, nasty weekend.
And not just that, that can actually help with mold control.
Oh, right. Yeah. The mold mitigation after the fact, you're right, be huge because you can get on it immediately. If you've got a little bit of kitty litter, then yeah, you can keep start that mold mitigation early.
Yeah, and I will tell you from an insurance standpoint, mold mitigation is gnarly. A
Yeah.
lot of companies have actual limits on mold claims. Some companies, if you have more than $50,000 in mold damages on a previous claim, even if it's a previous house, they won't even take you as a new applicant.
Wow.
That's how bad mold is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
50,000 in mold damages is nothing.
Sure. Yeah, because you're cutting all the drywall out of your house.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, it adds up fast. But kitty litter for cleanup and drying, the old, cell phone in the rice trick?
Yeah, cell phone and a bag of rice, try it out, sure.
Why not a cell phone in a bag of kitty litter?
Yeah, it kinda
It
does the same thing, right? It'll draw that moisture out.
it actually does a better job than rice does.
Oh, interesting.
Um, it prevents water damage, similar to rice, but a little bit more effective, especially if it's crushed up finer. Gardening, you can use it for odor control in trash cans, absorbing pit fire grease, creating a barrier against slugs and snails, because it is a desiccant. As soon as they cross it, they dry out
Yeah,
and die.
shrivels
And
them right up.
yeah. So with all of that, if my math is right, we're at $218. Does that sound
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I think we're there. Okay. All right. So we haven't talked about food yet, and that's a big one. And here's where you have to do a little calorie math. The traditional prepper mantra kind of tells us beans and rice will keep you alive, which is true. But man, that just sounds miserable. So we're gonna mix it up a little bit, but we're gonna have to stick with the beans and rice because it's calorically dense and it lasts for nearly ever. So you can store, you know, brown rice. You could store that for like almost ever, and you can get it for around $1 a pound, and that's 1,600 calories a pound. Most of the brown rice out there is going to be, you know, 10 servings in a pound for 160 calories each. And black beans are about a buck 50 a pound for 1,500 calories. So for 72 hours, we need at least 2,000 calories a day. And I say at least because you may be fighting storms. You may be freezing cold, which is going to take a lot more calories to keep you warm, or you might be fighting marauders. So you're just going to need a little more calorically dense diet right now. So here's what I'm going to say in this $500 prepper model: get 5 pounds of each. That's $7.50 for like 15,500 calories. That's about 8 person days of calories. And then I'm going to say get some good shelf-stable hot sauces. Because like I said earlier, man, the rice and beans diet is just it's terrible. It's terrible. It's gonna be bad for morale. It's gonna be a little bit of sadness. So there's a company I like. It's called Melinda's, and they're on Amazon. They're not like an Amazon brand. I've seen them in the store as well, but they have an awesome 3-pack of like hot sauces, but it's not just like super spicy hot sauce. There's like a mango habanero and a jalapeno, and I forget what the other one is, but they're like it's got some decent flavor to it. And that 3-pack of 5-ounce bottles that will last almost indefinitely, it's like $15. Now that's pretty expensive just to flavor your food, but I'm telling you, it's if you think you're going to survive off beans and rice, that's just a little bit sadness. So at the end, if we run out of money, we could come back. We can turn that $15 worth of Gucci hot sauce into like the $4 bottle of Tabasco if we have to. But this is what I would do for the $500 prepper. And
Can I add something in there as well?
sure, as long as it doesn't
Super,
cost any money.
super cheap money, but some of the powdered milk packets and just some sugar on hand, because that
Oh yeah.
extends your rice into rice pudding.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, and then you're not having dinner for breakfast all the time like a weirdo.
Exactly.
We probably have enough money for that. So if in my model, you're gonna be fed, but you're gonna be miserable. So I'm gonna say spend a little money, and I'm gonna say you need a Vodes meal. Even if it's just a breakfast, it's a little bit of happiness to start your morning and kind of get after it. That's $10 using our code with Vodes for one meal shipped to your door. It's 2.5 servings of actual real meal. It'll last 25 years. I'm requiring you to get the biscuits and gravy though. So do that. Spend the $10, get a 2.5 serving biscuits and gravy. You've got a little hot sauce now. You're going to be very happy. And then lastly, you need say $10 for some electrolytes to mix with your water. There's one brand I like. It's a like an Element knockoff. It's called Venture Pal. You'll see the logo. It's like VP on Amazon. We'll post a link, but it's the same exact ingredients as Element, and there's nothing special about it, right? Element is literally just sodium, potassium, magnesium. It's just that in a little packet, so it lasts forever because there's nothing else in it. There's no sugar in it or anything like that, and that's 16 packets for $10. And if we had maybe an extra $5 to throw at this, let's say we do, I would say get yourself a $5 small jar of instant coffee. And even if you don't drink coffee, I generally don't. I'm not like against coffee, but I'm just generally not like a coffee drinker. But there's plenty of reasons to have coffee in stock because, in the apocalypse, if you don't drink coffee, you might become a coffee drinker. But also, just out of necessity, if you have to stay up and protect your family, right? I mean, there's 1,000 reasons to have coffee on hand, right, Chris? Or a good bartering tool, even.
Very much a good bartering tool, but yeah, you're 100% right. We used to, when we were up on guard duty on deployment, we used to take a single sheet of toilet paper, dump some instant coffee in there, roll it up like a dip packet, and tuck it inside of our lip, and then
Really?
layer it with Tabasco sauce
Oh.
just to stay awake.
So I love that. But here's the thing. So there's $5 worth of instant coffee is like a ton of coffee, believe it or not.
Which
Like
a crap ton.
it's a bunch. So if we did all those things I just said, my math says we're at $266.
Yeah, I think that's right. So we're just over the halfway point, right?
Okay.
So let's talk about first aid. Because this is something we haven't touched on, and this can get expensive quickly.
Yeah.
So you really need to do your research and maybe price shop a little bit to fit your budget. But let's talk about some of the things that you're most likely to encounter in an emergency situation at home. There are some great simple first aid kits for 10 to 20 bucks, right? Um, you want to make sure they include burn gel, as this is something you're more likely to need if you're in a grid down situation. Or even something simple as the curling iron forgot was on and grabbed a hold of it in a rush. That hurts. I will tell you that from experience. The other things to add would be a tourniquet, quick clot gauze, not the powder, but the actual hemostatic gauze, an ibuprofen or some other type of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory NSAIDs. That's going to cost around another $30 for the basic. So let's say 50 total, and we'll post some links to our recommendations. We're not talking about the great outdoors brand that you can get at Walmart that's just a little 15-piece day hiking pack. These are actual solid kits that you can get.
Yeah, we'll start with a basic and then we'll add some of the stuff that Charlie told us to throw in there for trauma because we're thinking about the things that you are going to encounter in this kind of situation. So, okay, so we throw in $50 for first aid. That's it's quality and it's not like on our list. It's not one of like our food, water, shelter, weapons, warmth thing, but you're right. For this scenario, for the FEMA recommendations, for this 72-hour SIP kit, that's very important. So, um, now I'm gonna tackle warmth, but also we didn't address how you're gonna cook your food, right? And this you can't just eat hard beans and rice. I mean, maybe you could, but I don't think you're gonna get anything out of that if you just try to eat hard black beans and dry rice. That would be terrible.
I used to tuck rice into my lip, just dried rice. Just
Okay, I'm worried about all the stuff you just tuck into your lip.
that's probably why my teeth are so messed up now. But yeah, I used to do all kinds of things to stay awake on patrol. The sharpness of dried rice would poke at the inside of my lip and against my gums and hurt, so I would stay
Sure.
awake.
That's good. I like that. So we need to cook this stuff, right? And many of us have camp stoves already, which is great. You can, break it out if there's a emergency or a power outage, but there are some issues with these usually. Um, Obviously, if your camp stove is a solid fuel or a biomass type stove, we're not using that indoors, not even for a little bit. So that's out. Also, most camp stoves, the one I carry backpacking, my little butane stove, it's super duper small and it's not going to be great for your big standard kitchen pots and pans. So if you have a barbecue outside on your deck or your patio, that's always an option, but it may not be the best depending on if, let's say, there's a weather disaster and your barbecue flies away like that cow in Twister, or right? Like barbecue just around the house like that.
Meh.
Um, no. Or it might not be good for OPSEC, right, Chris? Like if the neighbors see you out cooking food in a Teotawaki event
Or smell it, because
or
that carries for a while.
oh, you're right. Lighting that's a good one. Yeah, that's bad OPSEC with lighting the barbecue up. You're right. So here's where I'm going. There is a very cool stove that I really like. It's called Caynel, Caynel. Again, don't take notes. We will post them on the blog. But this one's cool because it is a dual fuel heater and stove combo. And I found a couple adapter cables you can run on this thing. So it normally takes your little, like your standard size screw in butane can. There's a couple different sizes of these that I take these. This is what my backpacking stove runs off of. But this is dual fuel, so it will also run off propane, like your little green 1 gallon or 1 pound propane cans. But I found a cable adapter set that will run not just the screw-in butane, but also the cartridge style butane and the 1 pound propane, and it has the big adapter to run off your 20-pound uh, propane tank that's out in your barbecue.
Nice.
It's a very cool. The stove's about $44, and all of those adapters and cables and everything I found, and they do work. That's another $19. Now, I will say airflow and ventilation are important, right, Chris? When we're burning gas inside, this is something you do like with the window open, proper ventilation. But it is not going to kill you like barbecue briquettes inside your home.
Right, and I did find a, electric hot plate that runs on USB. So even your little jump pack, so long as that's charged, it will
Sure.
run the hot plate for up to an
Or
hour,
or your car battery.
or your car battery if you've got
Yep.
USB charger in your dash. However, it blows the budget completely out of the water.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. This is the $500 prepper. We can't do it. So if we took this really cool stove and heater combo and all of these cable adapters I found that are very cool. I'll post a link. It's very easy. This isn't scary. We're right about, like, including your first aid items, all your first aid wish lists, we're about $379. Now, if you don't have a barbecue or camp stove fuel out in the garage or any kind of fuel at all, we're probably going to have to add a propane canister, and that's going to be another $10 for a 1 pound, 16 ounce propane canister.
Yeah, and a 1 pound, I mean, 16.4 ounces is really what they are. So just over a pound. But a 1 pound propane tank typically lasts around 1.5 to 2 hours of like continuous high heat cooking on a standard, like the Coleman 2 burner camp stove. You
Sure.
know what I'm talking about? The green one
Yep.
with the flip
Of
up and
course.
yeah, we've all seen those. For smaller single burner stoves, the tank can last between like 1.8 to 3 hours, depending on output. So using low heat or cooking like boiling water, it can significantly extend that time. So you want to stock more fuel, but we're assuming that worst case, you'll have like a 20-pound barbecue propane tank, and we have the adapter for you to run this. Otherwise, you may want another butane or propane fuel canister, something to keep it running for the full 72 hours.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Especially if we're talking about this for heat too. That's a really good point. Now, one other thing on our list, the only thing we haven't addressed so far on our original hit list is shelter. And I'm assuming we're making some assumptions here. I'm assuming you're bugging in like FEMA recommends. So we do have shelter already. But in certain weather events, we are definitely going to need to stock enough supplies to secure ourselves and our home in an emergency. And in a long-term scenario, there's a couple of things you're really going to need. And so here's my like basic list. A good medium-sized hatchet, not like a Norwegian warhammery hatchet that's a weapon and a pokey thing on one end, because you want the hammer side as well. This is important. We're doubling this as a hammer. So that medium hatchet with the flat hammer, that's about $13. I found a couple of good ones. I actually bought one. It's a Chinesium one, but I bought one just to put it through the paces, and it held up for $13. It's actually a pretty decent little hatchet. You're going to need a couple of tarps, at least two, in case you need to plug some holes or create internal space free from weather, or you need to have a little sick bay in your house or something, but you need a couple of tarps. I'm going to say two good, heavy 8 by 10 foot tarps. That's another $20. You need a box of framing nails, like 3.5 inch nails, specifically because these will go through a 2x4 and secure it into another 2x4. So I'm going to say you want some good, the common 3.5 inch size, outdoor galvanized finished nails. That's about $13 for 1 pound. 1 pound ends up being about 47 nails.
Like
And
16 penny nails.
like a 16 penny nail, exactly, like
Okay.
that kind of thing. But I'm going with galvanized, just so they're a little better outdoors. Um, I'm in love with spray foam. You can do anything with it. You're going to need a couple of cans of spray foam because you can do anything, especially if you're starting to like fit windows that are starting to break, or you've got to board up some windows or something. Spray foam can come in really handy. We talked about the R value recently of spray foam. It's the best thing you can find in your house for R value. So 2 cans of spray foam. I'm going to put in your little sip kit here. That's $15. And then lastly, on one of Chris's, under $10 preps, the roll of Gorilla Tape, like a 10-yard Gorilla Tape by 3 inch, that's $6. So Chris, if my math is right here, we're at $456. We have $44 to play with. What are we missing in our first time prepper?
Ooh. Well, a good prepper is always organized. So we need a bin to put all of this stuff in as a shelter in place kit.
You
So
need the sip bin for the sip
yeah,
kit. Good call.
at least the stuff that you're not going to use for other purposes, right? So your hot sauce that can stay in the
Sure.
pantry
Of course.
for all of your culinary experimentation.
Just make sure you go, oh man, this is a great meal. Go get the sip kit hot sauce. we're not getting just not the fridge hot sauce today. This is the sip kit hot sauce. We need good hot sauce for this meal.
I can just imagine your pantry has like the label maker saying sip kit only
Yeah.
across half
Yeah.
the stuff in you.
Or a shelf where something should be and it says C sip kit.
Yep.
Where's the powdered milk? And there's a little thing on the shelf, a label maker. It's in the sip kit.
So a bin to put at least the stuff that we're not going to use for other purposes in. I'm going to throw in like a $10 58 quart storage tub with a lid, a clear one. That's important so you can actually see what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And the 5-pack of Bic lighters for another $10 at max.
Yeah.
Usually you can find those in the Walmart little aisles at checkout for even less.
Right.
But that
Okay.
let's call that $20 between the
Okay.
two.
Okay. So if we've got somewhere around 24, $25 left, maybe a little bit more, you need a NOAA radio for sure. We've said that before. That's obviously on our list of the things we always talk about as your minimums, but NOAA radio, and that's on the FEMA list. You need a weather radio. There's one we recommend that's $10 and it's a AA battery operated one. But I like that one. It's got the speaker and it has the little headphone jack. So there's one we recommend. That's a $10 item. And then you're going to need at least one good flashlight and AA batteries to run it. And I know most people ideally own a flashlight, but if you're like Buddy, you've got like the old plastic Rayovac brand light with dead batteries in it, so it just gives you like a little orange hue out of that incandescent bulb for like 10 minutes before it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a good flashlight, and you can get good flashlights for so cheap. For $10, you can get a flashlight that comes with batteries. There's one called Lux Pro on Amazon, $10.99, and it comes with two AA batteries. So let's say that for that $20 ish, I'm gonna get you that, you know, AA, maybe a couple of AA's and the NOAA radio and the flashlight. Let's say you've got, if the flashlight comes with two, let's say you have six AA batteries. So if your flashlight or your NOAA radio die, you have another set of hot spares. I think that's kind of the bare minimum. And it's a decent light. It's got 300 lumen high and a 100 lumen low. So it's not super bright, but it's the perfect in-home tactical-ish flashlight. I would say that's what I would do. And then, with our last, I don't know, $4 or $5, Chris, I'd say we go to the dollar store.
Yeah. Things like tinfoil, black garbage bags, the Jesus candles. You could replace the Bic lighters with dollar store lighters if we wanted to, have another $8 to play with. Maybe get a $13 flashlight and a few more batteries. I will say that we lost power this last weekend, and I pulled out one of the TACNAV cards and laid it down, and then put
Stop. Really?
our
And
flashlight. Yeah, I put
use the diffuser?
one of our flashlights on it as a diffuser, and we have so many lights in this house, so many extra flashlights and crush lights and the goal zeros and
Sure.
the shop lights and everything. But just setting up the one flashlight on that diffuser was enough to light the kitchen so that we could find all of the other lights around and hang the goal zeros from our actual living room light and have
Yeah.
those as kind of a gentle light.
I
So
like that. That's awesome.
for $7, the TACNAV card as a light diffuser makes a brilliant addition.
Well, yeah, and I've got one in my wallet all the time, right? So if I need it, yeah, it's always there. But yeah, so you know what? You mentioned candles. I didn't think about the candles. You're right. You can get the Jesus candle for $1 at dollar store, $1.10 some places. But having a couple of those is great because we didn't really address light besides the one flashlight. So you're right. A couple of Jesus candles, and I did the math on those. Remember, I let one of those go to see how long it would go. It was in the 50 something hours range, just
Yeah,
on
wasn't it 56 hours or something?
56 hours maybe on the whole time. So you're exactly right. That's what I would do with my last $4. You're right. Tinfoil would be a good one. You can use that for all kinds of stuff. black garbage bags, although the toilet you mentioned comes with some black garbage bags. But black garbage bags can be good for a lot of things, especially to replace a tarp. It's good redundancy. And then a couple of candles. And we could do some horse trading on some of this stuff, but basically we ended up right at $500, and that's everything. I'm visualizing this, your 56 quart, 58 quart, or whatever it is, little Rubbermaid tub. It's got a lot of stuff in it.
I think the only thing that I would add is if you've got, 3, $4 left over, if you have done some horse trading, would be those little emergency blankets, the bright, shiny silver ones, because
I
those
thought
can
about that.
double up as emergency shelter. They can double up as emergency light reflectivity,
Yep.
all kinds of things.
Yeah, you're right. You can usually find those for 99 cents somewhere. You're right. A couple of those. I would definitely be willing to save a couple of bucks somewhere else. Maybe we do end up getting the cheaper hot sauce. It's going to make me sad, but I get it. And then we've got money for a couple of those heat reflective blankets, cuz you're right, not just staying warm, but for light reflection is a good one, especially if you just got one candle in a room. When you start hanging those um like in your entryways, it's going to light the room up a lot better.
Yep. It's going to
Yeah.
make a big difference. So I think that about tops us out right around $500, but
We're
that's a
right.
good starting point for a shelter in place kit.
It's a great starting point. Yeah, $500, and that's kind of it to go from 0 to prepper. So, yeah, hopefully everybody took something away from this, but if you didn't, if you are master prepper and had all this stuff already, um, if you've got that friend that's just trying to get started, and that's why we wrote this one, is we see people all the time online that say, "Where do I start? Like, where do I start prepping?" And this is it. Here's the list. People just start shotgunning answers at people, but here's the $500 prepper. You can go from 0 to ready for that 72-hour emergency in $500.
And if you are against firearms, that gives you another $165 to spend on first aid or food or any of the other things in there.
100%. Yeah, or you already have a gun, or you want to go, you can get a pretty decent crossbow for $100 and free up quite a bit of money to do some other stuff.
Exactly. So I think that's about going to wrap this one up. What do you think, Casey?
I think so. Yeah, this was a fun one, but come back next week. We'll take it in a completely different direction again.
Absolutely. And until then, remember, you are your own stakeholder. We'll see you then.